When Lincoln visited Ronnie Ann in Great Lakes City, he typically left the itinerary up to her. He reasoned that she knew the city better than he did, so she trusted her judgment when it came to decide on where to go or what to do. This time around that there were two things he wanted to do. First, challenge Ronnie Ann into a few rounds of musclefish. Although she typically had the upper hand during their bouts, when he had been looking up at YouTube video tutorials, practicing his combos for the past 2 months. He had been aching to show off his progress. The second, go to the park. Although they typically prefer indoors to outdoors, the daily weather forecast predicted beautiful, clear-skied day with temperatures hovering above the upper 50s. Not too cold, not too hot, and they didn't want to let such a day go to waste. Ronnie Ann agreed to both. Musclefish came first. Shortly after he arrived at 10, the two of them clomped out upstairs and kicked off their gaming session. Over the next 2 hours, it was clear that Lincoln's practice and study had paid off. He was giving his tomboyish friend quite a bit of trouble. After scoring the 3 discus victories in the row, with his newly mainly chosen Octagon, he left her with no choice but to bring on her own Lady Orca. This culminated in a tense, even about to each character pulled out to stops to ensure victory. Octagon used his projectiles to control the pace of the match, while Lady Orca did her best to weave around them and close the distance. Eventually both characters were left with only a sliver of HP. Lady Orca, seeing victory in her grasp, went for a grab, only to watch aghast as Octagon sidestepped out of the way and finished her off with an ink bullet. KO. Octagon wins. Ha! Lincoln said, grinning and pumping his fists in the air. I told you I'd been practicing. Ronnie Ann just snorted. Practicing what? How to spam Octagon specials over and over? It's not spamming, it's zoning. There is a difference. Whatever, she muttered in response, lacking the willpower to debate the semantics with him. She even leaned forward and turned the game system off with a click. I think we've played enough. Let's go to the park. He gave her an annoying wink and smirk, relishing the rare opportunity to declare victory over her. Tired of losing, huh? He asked, with a raise of his eyebrow. Ronnie Ann twisted herself towards him and jabbed him in the chest with her pointed finger. Hey, you were the one who said you wanted to go to the park today, bucko. Lincoln, flinching a bit from her poke, backed off and held his hands defensively. Okay, that's fair. Let's go to the park. He picked himself up and moved towards the door, expecting her to follow. Instead, she crawled underneath her bed and started rummaging through the miscellaneous items that she had lazily threw under the tree there. I need a sec to get myself together. You could just go down and I'll meet you at the stoop. Lincoln was a little puzzled, but he let that pass without a comment. If anything else, he appreciated having the time there to say hello to diverse and colorful members of her family. On his way through the house, he posed a photo for Frida, sampled a bit of Rosa's Pico di Gallo, and even learned an interesting fact about pirates from CJ. By the time they finally got to the stoop, he didn't have time to wait long as his friend emerged from the front door with her helmet strapped onto her head and her skateboard under her arm. He wasn't surprised that she would want to get into bombarding about the outing, but he was taken a bit off guard since he spied a second skateboard and helmet under her other arm. 2 skateboards? He asked. Yep, she said, flashing him a wide smile. One for me and one for you. I figured we could go there in style. Lincoln was tempted to write this off as a joke, but he didn't see a single trace of sarcasm or fatuousness everywhere in her face. Her smile was as sincere as it could be. Ronnie Ann? He mumbled, limply raising a finger in objection. Is there my Uncle Carlos' old board? It's a little rusty, but it still works pretty well. Ronnie Ann? We'll meet up at the Samir while we're there. He can teach us a new hand paint trick. I saw him. Ronnie Ann! Ronnie Ann's smile disappeared as her eyes snapped towards his. What is it? I don't know how to skateboard. She stood there confused in silence for a couple of seconds until the meaning of his words sunk in. Once they did, she deflated and went limp, almost losing her grip on the boards. Ah, right. Feeling the weight of her own sheepishness and embarrassment, Ronnie Ann shuffled her way back towards the door. She had been so excited about the prospect of skating to the park alongside with him, and it never occurred to ask if he really skated. The very idea made her feel, well, not quite stupid, but definitely a bit thoughtless. I guess we could just walk there. Walking's fine. Lincoln's wincing sympathy at his friend's door words reached out and gave her a comforting pat on the back. But right before he reached her back, she suddenly perked up, making him flinch and jerk his hand away. Unless, she said with a hint of excitement. Unless what? Rather than giving a response, Ronnie Ann grabbed the front doorknob and creaked it open and slipped inside. Hold on a sec. I'll be right back. It wasn't long before grinning, rejuvenated Ronnie Ann re-emerged from the door. Puzzling, she had her helmet on, and she was still holding her board with her spare helmet. What's this? Lincoln asked. I told you I don't know how to skateboard. Just put it on, lame-o. This will make sense in a second. Despite his puzzlement, he then decided to take her word for it and strapped the helmet on. When he reached as she reached the bottom of the stairs, laid her board down and mounted it. Once she found her footing, she crouched down and looked at him and smirked. Get on. Lincoln blinked. She's not really asking me to do this, is she? Beg your pardon? He asked. Get on my back. Yup. He twiddled his fingers and crept towards her, realizing she was serious, and she was not going to take no for an answer. Are you sure you can carry me? Ronnie Ann just smirked and cocked her head back, sending a wave rippling down her ponytail. I once carried my grandma across town, and I'm pretty sure I can handle a beanpole like you. Get on. Lincoln's jaw fell a bit back slack on his friend's boast. Rosa tended to wear dresses that obscured her figure, but from what he could tell, she was a pretty heavy-set woman, and Ronnie Ann bore that weight for several blocks. He knew that she was very pretty and sporty athletic, but how could a girl at her age be that strong? You're kidding. No, I'm not. You can just go and ask her if you don't believe me. She gave Lincoln another smirk, patted herself on the back a few times. Now get on. I promise I won't drop you. Cross my heart. Lincoln was a bit apprehensive, but remembered all too well of what happened the last time he didn't trust her, seeking to avoid a repeat of the egg fiasco project. He then took a deep breath, walked over to the board and climbed onto Ronnie Ann's back. To his surprise, her knees barely buckled under his weight. Hold on tight, she cried, steering herself to the journey ahead. Lincoln nodded and wrapped his arms around her neck and coiled his legs around her waist. Once she sensed that he had secured his grip, she then took off. And just like that, he was launched onto the ride of his life. The world around him blurred more as she picked up the speed, as gusts of cool wind buffeted his face, and, of course, sent his hair askew. His heartbeat skyrocketed at both speed intensively, until it felt like a jackhammer was drilling into him from the inside. All the while he clung to his friend like a newborn to his mother, desperate not to let go of the grip slip even a little. It didn't even help that he had no way of knowing how much farther they had to go. He could scarcely keep his eyes open. When he did manage to prop them open, he could barely make out the scenery whizzing past him. His body was aching for him to try to get off, and he almost brought to himself to yell at her to stop. But then, while he was tightening the grip, he felt his cheeks brushed up against hers. It was only a slight graze, but the warm sensation of her skin as his, just strong enough to trigger a change within him. A wave of relief radiated outward from the spot where their cheeks touched, washing away any doubt that she would get him to the park safe and sound. A dreamy smile spread across his cheeks, which endured throughout the remainder of the trip. Eventually, he felt the board slow down and come to a stop. Opening his eyes, he found that Ronnie Ann had brought him to the heart of the park. He released his grip, letting himself fall off her back, and collapsed onto the ground, panting. Seriously? Ronnie Ann said as she loomed over her prone. You're the one who's out of breath? I know, he said between gasps there. It's just, boy, what a rush. Ronnie Ann chuckled, shaking her head in disbelief. You just need some protein. Wait right there. Lincoln barely eked out another nod as she walked away. A few moments later, she returned with 2 hot dogs, each of them loaded up with beans, onions, and sauerkraut. She then knelt down, laid one of the hot dogs down on her board, and brought another one to his lips. Soon she lowered herself. Intoxicating aroma of meaty dog and its marade spices filled his airways. Here you go, Lamo. Open wide. Happily he obliged and let her feed him the hot dog, bite by bite. It wasn't exactly gourmet, but it was warm, hearty, and flavorful. Everything you'd expect from comfort food. And for reasons he couldn't quite understand, having it been hand-fed to him made the experience even more satisfying. Thanks, Ronnie Ann, he muttered. He let her wipe his face clean. You're welcome, she said, taking him by the hand and pulling him up to his feet. Now come on, Samir is waiting for us. And with that they took off. Samir, as it turned out, was a bit disappointed to find out Lincoln didn't know how to skate, but Lincoln assured him that he was perfectly happy to watch. He looked at the amazement as Samir demonstrated his handprint plant, and it was more amazed to see Ronnie Ann nailed it after trying for 5 or 6 times. Samir then showed her off a little bit before taking off, and Ronnie Ann spent the next couple hours taking the Baxter Bente and friend across the park and showing him everything it had to offer. Between skaters, jugglers, statues, amateur theater productions, duck ponds, and patches of grass to relax in, he wasn't so bored or underwhelmed for a single moment. But of course, all good things must come to an end. Lincoln had promised Lori that he would meet her outside that Casa Grande's home at 3:30 so she could take him home. So around 3 they decided to pack it in. As they neared the park's entrance, Ronnie Ann strapped her in her helmet and hopped on her on board and gave Lincoln a knowing smile. Ready for another ride? He responded with an eager nod. He strapped on the spare helmet, jumped onto her back and secured his grip, eager for the journey ride home. You know, Lamo, I can teach you how to skateboard if you want, she said. Offers open. Maybe someday, Lincoln said. For now, I'm pretty much okay with this. Well, my pretties, that was Take a Ride, a Loud House fan fiction written by MrTyeDye. My final thoughts on this story? It was such a really great story. I personally like this one that involves Ronnie Ann and Lincoln doing, going to a park and, having a fun time. I do remember this. This was honestly one of the best ones I've ever seen. This one is definitely one of the good Loud House stories I've seen by MrTyeDye. And MrTyeDye, he has written other Loud House stories. Like, I've seen a couple of his Loud House stories. I've also narrated a couple other ones that he's written, like Dr. Luann, for example. I mean, that one was fun. But I know I haven't read any of his stories written by him in a long time, so yeah. I personally really like this story. I thought it was really cute too, because I know some people do ship Ronnie Ann and Lincoln. Some people, it's common in the show from what I do remember. I don't know if it still is or not. But I mean, I have no problem with people shipping Lincoln and Ronnie Ann together. I mean, it's a cute couple. I personally like it. I personally thought it was a pretty good couple for what this show is going for. And this is honestly a pretty good story, MrTyeDye. So if MrTyeDye is around, like if he happens to stumble across this video, I want him to know that this is a good story. So with that being the case, and with that being said, I personally really like this story. And I will leave a link in the description down below for any of you guys who are interested in checking this story out. And it is, written by MrTyeDye, so be sure to, go send him support, because he's a really cool author for Loud House stories. So, anyways, with that being said and that being the case, the grammar's good. I was able to read this without a problem. I do have to say, it's a pretty good story. I could actually see this being a real Loud House episode, like Lincoln not sure how to skate. Or skateboard. I I really do hope we get another Ronnie Ann and Lincoln episode where Ronnie Ann teaches Lincoln how to skate. I can honestly see that happening, but I'm really hoping Loud House does that episode. With Lincoln learning to skate by Ronnie Ann. Like, skateboard is what I mean. But anyway, I guess with that being the case, and with that being said, I'm just going to say, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with me, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these stories. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. I give this story a 10 out of 10. I can honestly see this being a real episode of The Loud House. I personally really thought it was really nice. I like this episode too. So, well, not this episode, but the story. I don't know why I call it episode, but if this was a real episode, you could definitely bet I'd watch it. So, anyways, what did you guys personally think of this story? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better, feel free to let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And as always, I am the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's video. And if you're new to my channel, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload. As always, if you're interested in supporting me on DeviantArt, link to my DeviantArt will be in the About page section, so you guys can go check that out. Also, if you want to go check out my Twitter page, link to my Twitter account will be in the About page section, so you guys can go check that one out if you want. Also, if you're interested in subscribing to my backup channel known as Miss Dark Shigo, link to that will also be in the About page section, so you guys can go check that out if you haven't. And you are more than welcome to subscribe to that, as links to those will be in the About page section. And as always, if I'm missing something about this story that I did not mention, let me know what it is in the comments below. And as always, I will be seeing you guys all in the next video. And like always, roll the outro, because I'm out.